Harry Sterling did not panic. That was the first thing people learned about him, and the last thing they forgot. He stood at the center of the Sterling Foundation Gala. 500 guests, 40 cameras, one mission, and he was completely still while the room moved around him. Board members shook hands with senators. Photographers repositioned for better angles. Waitstaff wove through the crowd like they'd rehearsed it. And Harry watched all of it with the quiet attention of a man who had built his entire life on seeing what others missed. Then the doors opened. He didn't have to look. He felt the shift, the way certain people can change the temperature of a room simply by entering it. Isabella Vaughn walked in wearing deep burgundy, her hand resting lightly on the arm of Derek Calloway, Harry's most persistent competitor and the one man in Manhattan who had spent the better part of 3 years trying to dismantle everything Harry had built. It wasn't the choice of date that cut. It was the timing, the gala, his event, his foundation, his cameras. She looked directly at him as she laughed at something Derek said. A laugh that lasted a beat too long, designed to be noticed. And it worked, because 3 different photographers turned their lenses in her direction, and 2 board members near Harry went quiet. He took a slow sip of water and looked away first. That was his only mistake, and he knew it immediately. Looking away first meant she'd gotten something. He set the glass down, and for exactly 4 seconds he did not know what to do, which was a feeling so unfamiliar to him that it almost felt physical. That's when he saw her. She was standing near the far edge of the ballroom, close to one of the tall windows that looked out over the Manhattan skyline. Not positioned to be approached. Not scanning the room for someone important to talk to. She was simply watching, the way someone watches a film they find interesting but haven't decided if they like yet. He recognized her because he'd been briefed on the consultant work she'd done for the Foundation's youth initiative. Vanessa Cole. Marketing. Sharp instincts, his director had said. Doesn't oversell herself. Harry crossed the room. She noticed him coming but didn't straighten. Didn't smile preemptively. Most people started performing before he even reached them. She didn't. Dance with me, he said. She looked at him. Not up at him, just at him directly, for a moment that stretched just long enough to feel deliberate. I don't fix egos, she said. Her voice was calm. No edge, no performance. Something in his chest shifted, just slightly. Good. I only need optics. She glanced once toward the center of the room, then back at him. Then I'll ask you one question first. He waited. Is she worth it? He didn't answer. She nodded, as if his silence told her exactly what she needed to know, and she set her glass down on the window ledge beside her. Fine, she said. One dance. They stepped onto the floor and the cameras followed within seconds, because Harry Sterling didn't dance. Not at his own events. Everyone in that room knew it, which meant everyone was watching when he did. He was composed, measured. His hand at her back, the correct distance, the correct posture. He had done this before with different women for different reasons, and he knew exactly how it looked. What he had not accounted for was what she would say. The music slowed. Isabella's laughter died down across the room. And Vanessa, without looking at him, said quietly, "You're letting her win." He felt his shoulder tighten. Excuse me? She wanted a reaction. This is a reaction. You just dressed it up better. No one had said anything like that to him in recent memory. Not a board member. Not a lawyer. Not anyone who still wanted to be in the room with him the following morning. He searched her expression for some sign that she was performing, angling for something, but there was nothing. She was just telling him what she saw. You don't know what she wanted, he said. I know what you're doing, she replied. And so does everyone watching. For a full 30 seconds he said nothing. The music continued. The cameras continued. And somewhere in the middle of that silence, something happened that Harry could not have predicted and could not have controlled. He stopped thinking about Isabella. He started paying attention to the woman in front of him. She didn't ask who Isabella was. She didn't ask how long they'd been together or how the engagement ended. She didn't reach for the story the way everyone else always did. She simply kept her eyes steady and her posture relaxed and let the silence do what silence does when no one rushes to fill it. When the song ended, she stepped back naturally. No lingering. Thank you for the dance, she said. And then, without waiting for him to respond, she walked back toward the window. He stood in the middle of the floor for a moment longer than was comfortable. 3 photographers captured it. The next morning, the photos were everywhere. Sterling moves on with mystery woman. That was the first headline. The second was more direct. Who is she? And by 9 in the morning, Vanessa Cole's name had been pulled. Her professional profile had been found, and someone had already dug up the fact that she'd consulted for the foundation's campaign division. That was when the narrative started building itself. Vanessa sat at her kitchen table with her laptop open and her coffee going cold and watched her phone light up with numbers she didn't recognize. Her inbox was already full. Her company's social media page had been tagged in 47 posts overnight. She closed the laptop. Then she picked up her phone and called the one number she had from him. He answered on the second ring. "This ends now," she said. Harry was already in his car when she called. He'd seen the headlines before 6 in the morning. He'd read every one of them with the same expression he used in board meetings: neutral, absorbing, calculating. His assistant had already drafted 3 response statements. His PR team had already proposed 2 different containment strategies. And then Vanessa called and said this ends now, and for the first time in a very long while, he didn't reach for a strategy. "I'll send a car," he said. "Don't." Her voice was steady, but there was something underneath it. Not fear, more like controlled anger. The kind that comes from someone who had worked hard to build something quiet and private and had just watched it get loud without her permission. "I didn't agree to this." "I know," he said. "Then fix it." She hung up. He sat with the silence of the call for a moment, then told his driver to change direction. He sent flowers that afternoon. White ones, nothing excessive. No card, just his name. She didn't respond. He had his assistant draft a brief press statement attributing the attention to a misunderstanding, hoping it would redirect the coverage. Didn't. The internet had already decided the story it wanted to tell, and a corporate statement wasn't going to compete with a photograph of Harry Sterling looking at a woman like he'd just remembered something important. 2 days passed. On the 3rd morning, Harry showed up at her office. Not through a representative. Not with a scheduled appointment. He came himself, and he stood in the small reception area of her consulting firm, which was nothing like his offices, which was the point, he understood, of why she'd built it this way, and he waited while the receptionist called back to tell Vanessa he was there. She made him wait 11 minutes. When she came out, she didn't invite him to sit. She stood near the front of the room with her arms at her sides and looked at him with the expression of someone who had spent the last 3 days deciding exactly what she wanted to say. "I want to be clear about something," she said. "I know," he said. "You don't know yet. I haven't said it." He nodded once. She was right. "You walked up to me and made a calculation. I was a useful variable and you used me. And now there are reporters asking questions about my professional history and whether I was hired to be seen with you, and I have clients calling to ask what's going on." She paused. "I didn't sign up for any of that." "No," he said. "You didn't. So I need you to correct it publicly. Tell them it was nothing. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. And then leave me alone." He was quiet for a moment. The kind of quiet she was already learning didn't mean he was searching for words. It meant he was deciding how honest to be. "I don't want revenge anymore," he said. She waited. "I mean that. I went into that night thinking I needed to look like I had moved on. And then you said something on that dance floor that nobody has said to me in." He stopped. Started again. "I came here because I don't know what to do with that. And I don't know how to explain that without it sounding like another calculation." "It does sound like one," she said. "I know. Then what do you want?" He had prepared for most of the things she might say. He had not prepared for that question. And the answer, the real answer, wasn't polished or useful or strategic in any way, and when he reached for it, he found it was the one thing he didn't know how to deliver. He didn't have one. Not a clean one. Not one that made sense yet. She watched his face and saw the moment he ran out of composure. It wasn't dramatic. It was just there. A small, unguarded thing in the center of all that control. "Come back when you know," she said, and she walked back toward her office. He left, but he came back the next day. Not to her office, to the nonprofit youth center where she volunteered 2 mornings a week. because he'd done the one thing he always did when he wanted to understand something. Research. He didn't approach her there. He just delivered a check to the director, a sizable one for the program, and left without making sure she knew about it. She found out anyway. She didn't call, but she stopped ignoring his name when it came up. He apologized the following week. Not in a letter, not through an intermediary. He called her and he spoke without a prepared version of what he needed to say, which meant it came out incomplete and occasionally contradictory and more honest than anything he'd said in years. He told her that Isabella had never been chosen for the right reasons and that he had known that and done it anyway because wanting something real had always felt like a kind of weakness to him. He told her that his family had treated love like a transaction for so long that he'd simply accepted it as the only language available. He told her that he was aware, fully aware, that showing up at her office and sending flowers and donating to a youth center were all still forms of strategy, and that he was trying to learn the difference between pursuing something and controlling it. She listened to all of it. When he was done, she said, "That's the first thing you've said to me that I actually believe." He exhaled, quiet, but she heard it. "What do I do with that?" he asked. "Nothing yet," she said. "Just don't ruin it." Isabella moved fast. Within 2 weeks of the gala, a story appeared in one of the city's better-read gossip columns, sourced anonymously, suggesting that Vanessa had been approached before the event, that the dance had been choreographed for press purposes, and that Harry Sterling had simply found a more willing participant in his image management. It was carefully worded. Nothing provably false. Just enough to make people wonder. Vanessa read it on a Tuesday morning and didn't call Harry. She went through her day and finished her work, and that evening she sat in her apartment and allowed herself to feel the specific kind of anger that comes from being made into a prop in someone else's story twice. First by someone who used you, and then by someone who resented that it worked. Harry saw it before she did. He knew immediately. He'd known Isabella long enough to recognize the precision of it, the way it left no clean edge to grab. His PR team called within the hour. His communications director called 7 minutes after that. 3 board members sent messages by end of day recommending a controlled statement that expressed confidence in the foundation's reputation and stopped well short of addressing Vanessa by name. The safe play was obvious. It had always been obvious to him. Find the position that protected the most assets, move quickly, minimize exposure. He had done it dozens of times. It was the reason the company was what it was. It was the reason he was who he was. He sat in his office for 2 hours and did not make a decision. Then he called a press brief for the following morning. Vanessa found out about it the night before, through a mutual contact. She didn't ask him about it. She decided she would watch and see who he chose to be when it cost him something. The brief was small. A dozen journalists, his communications team off to one side, a clean podium in front of the foundation's logo. Harry stood without notes. He said that the story circulating about the gala was false, that Vanessa Cole had not been approached, arranged, or compensated in any way, that she had been an invited guest and a professional who had done excellent work for the foundation's outreach program, and that what had happened between them on that dance floor had been his choice and his alone. He said she owed him nothing, not a performance, not a continuation, not a public role. A reporter near the back raised a hand. "Is this another PR move? Managing the narrative before it manages you?" Harry looked at her directly. "No," he said. "This is the first honest thing I've done in years." The room went quiet in the way rooms do when something unexpected breaks through the surface of a managed event. He stepped back from the podium. Vanessa was standing near the back of the room. She'd come quietly, alone. She had not told him she would be there. He saw her when the questions started again. The cameras redirected, the journalists pivoting, his communications team already stepping forward to contain the follow-up, and for a moment neither of them did anything. He didn't know if she would stay. He had made the choice without knowing. That had been the point. She stayed. When the room cleared, she walked toward him slowly. Not quickly. Not with the kind of momentum that belongs to the movies. Just forward. One step at a time, like someone who had thought carefully about every one of them. "You didn't have to do that," she said. "I know. You knew it would cost you." "Yes." She looked at him for a long moment. "You don't get forever because you defended me." He nodded. I know that too. You get a chance. She let the words settle. 1. That's what you get. He didn't reach for her hand or say something designed to close the distance between them. He just nodded again, and she saw in his face the thing she had been looking for since that first night. Not the control, not the strategy, not the performance, just a person standing in the consequence of his own honesty, not trying to make it smaller than it was. 3 weeks later, there was a small fundraiser. Nothing like the Gala, a community event for the youth center, held in a space without photographers or board members or press. Someone had set up a small speaker in the corner and put on something slow. Vanessa was talking to one of the program directors when Harry appeared beside her. He didn't interrupt. He waited until there was a natural pause, and then he looked at her. "Dance with me," he said. She recognized the words. She looked at him the same way she had the first night, taking her time, letting him wait. Then she said yes. And this time, no cameras turned. No room shifted. No one tracked the moment for a headline. There was no X watching from across the floor. There was no strategy underneath it. Just two people who had found each other in the wreckage of something calculated and chosen carefully, imperfectly, honestly, to build something real instead. If the story stayed with you, leave a comment below. And if you want more stories like this, hit like and subscribe. New story every week. Thank you very much for watching.